My question is for John Bond. As the publishing industry becomes increasingly competitive, are applicants who have postgraduate qualifications in publishing more favourably viewed than those who don't?
Can I ask, are you doing a postgraduate degree in publishing? Or answer that question.
Well, I'm only a second year at the moment, so
Okay.
I haven't.
Definitely the answer is no. I'm fascinated to know what the other panellists will think about this. I mean, I think there's a degree to which publishing is no different to other creative media and entertainment businesses, in that it wants an entirely disparate cross-section of things. And I think, I've done events like these before where I've gone to kind of after Q&A to meet people afterwards, and people have been actually not only wanting a job in publishing, but handing me their manuscripts to see if we'd actually publish them. And I think there is this sort of myth with publishing that it is this romantic editorial notion which pervades everything. And of course, creativity is very important, and certainly in that role, but creativity manifests itself in design, in copywriting, in production. I was going to say in finance, but it manifests itself in lots of different areas, and we need those desperately. So we need a real cross-section. And I'm not saying you're put off by people who have gone into the minutiae of publishing, but I think one can sort of overanalyze sometimes, and I think maybe we're looking for something different sometimes. I think not just what I think people would expect a publishing company to be after.
I think.
What about the BBC? Does having an MA help, Peter?
I think it's interesting. I think, just briefly, you can have too much education and not enough life experience and life skills, and you need to be careful of that. Sometimes you look at people's CVs and you think, what have they done apart from live on a campus in Lewes outside Brighton? Sorry, where my son is. You can do too much. You can be overly refined. It's not that education is a bad thing. It's a great thing. But interesting. It's interesting just to tell you one thing, which is we've just taken on 18 production trainees in the BBC just in the last 6 months, which is great. They're great jobs, and the people who get them they're so lucky to have that great helicopter ride around the whole of the BBC. It's fantastic, and they're really smart people. Interestingly, the one guy that got people excited, I'm not sure at the end of the day whether he got the gig, but the one guy was one of the people who was in the shortlist who'd been a dustbin man, and the fact that a dustman had applied to be at the BBC, and he had all these qualifications, and he looked like he'd had a rather interesting life alongside the other things he'd done, was something that people went, that guy's been a dustman. He's been a dustman for 6 months. Now, I'm not saying, by the way, that the headline, BBC looks for dustmen. Sorry, dust people. But it was rather interesting that something that catches your eye alongside I've got a good 2-1, whatever, is really, really important. And putting that on your CV and bringing that to the interview and selling that is really very important.
Well, anybody else in terms of getting jobs in their industry?
I would actively discourage education beyond BA. Definitely. I think it's a severe handicap. Further employment. I wouldn't touch it. And in fact, I'll tell you why. Because if you were...
Tom, this is a university you're at.
You want...
Yeah, you're a professor of
another one. Yeah, my own MA students are going to kill me. Forgotten that. No. Listen, if you want to get into the media industry, any media industry at all, we're only going to look at one thing, which is how keen you are. What have you done? And if you've sat for 3 years here, you must be busting to get out and get into the industry. And so everything you do must be geared towards that. You should be working down at Radio York for nothing. You should be hammering the door down. You should be, or the local paper, or whatever you can do, or producing the student newspaper here, whatever you can do. The last thing you want is to spend more time here. What you want to do is to get out in the world and get through our doors. And if you don't, it says something about you.
I think the same applies to advertising, certainly on the creative side of advertising. I never, ever look at people's qualifications. I look at the work they've done. I look at if they're a writer, what they've written, if they're an art director, how their portfolio looks. I look at the attitude. The last thing I would look at is the qualification. And, quite often somebody will come in part way through towards the end of the degree, and we might just take them on at that point and say, look, come to some agreement with your tutors, because there's an opportunity here, and if you pass it by, it won't be here in 6 months, and you're fit for the job. And I think it goes back to that whole thing about creativity and making stuff. If you're just creating stuff and making it happen and bringing it alive, and you get out with enthusiasm and you show your potential employers that enthusiasm, that willingness to make things happen, I mean, that is so compelling and so interesting for a potential employer. It's far better than a piece of paper that says you studied hard for 4 years or 3 years, and it's there. Creative industry is about making stuff.
I'd like to go slightly the other way on this. Coming from kind of web background and technology background, it's about innovation and clever people. Innovation needs clever people, and I agree with what people have said. Hungry people and values and behaviours are far more important when you're young and starting on a career than skills and experience maybe in those first few years. But we've had some brilliant MA students and MSc students who have done brilliant research, and what we've found with them is that they've got a mindset which does go to seek the information and do some research first, which is actually quite interesting when you're looking into language patterns, how people search the internet, how people journey around the internet, user experience around using digital media, digital devices. And master's students do have sometimes that approach to research that is lacking from people that have come straight in on the job. So I think there's definitely a place. And if digital and technology is all about innovation, then I think there is space for master's students. Yeah, so all is not lost.
There's got to be a balance between the two, really, somewhere.
Yeah, I just remember 10 years ago I was on the board of Manchester United and we got to the final of the European League Cup in Barcelona, and my son was then doing his finals at Manchester and said to me, "What do I do? I've got an exam that day." And I thought long and hard, and I could get him back just in time for the exam, but he'd be a bit late. And I just said, "Listen, Matthew, I've got to tell you, in 10 years' time, no one will ask what degree you got. But if you can say you were in Barcelona the night Manchester United beat..." So I think, so he came. He didn't get a very good degree, but he did. It doesn't matter. He got a job. No, look, the truth is, it's horses for courses. I think if you're here and you want to go into journalism, I think doing some of the postgraduate courses are very good now. I think the one at City is very good. The one at Cardiff has always been very good, and I think they're worth doing if you can get on them, particularly this year because it's tough.
Just to make another point, Greg, because it's I think creativity. Just to back up the point about studies and research and things. I mean, it's interesting also that a lot of the most creative people coming into the business now are also, technologically very skilled. I mean, they have done extraordinary work, in technological areas. Think about some of the people who are going to be in the north with me who are going to be who do our R&D work, who are looking at the internet on the television, and the people who develop the iPlayer, and the people who develop widescreen, and lots of other things. Those are incredibly valuable people, and I don't know how vocational some of the things you do are, or how skills based they are, but we couldn't go very far without having some of those people in our business too, and some of them have been at it for 10 years, and then they joined us at a different stage in their careers from some of the people who come in who've not been working quite so intensively in areas like R&D and innovation. So it is a bit horses for courses, this.